Memories, cycles, sacrifice, hatred, and friendship. The many themes of Amphorius all clashing together at once, creating the most confusing story I have covered to date. Because not only are there clashing aeons, demigods, and geniuses, but they are all clashing at different points in time as the story is told from a multitude of swapping perspectives, creating a grand and epic tale so complex that it somehow topped 3.4. And as you all know, I've been studying this story for months now, and I have made a habit of making predictions that are normally at least somewhat right. However, this time I completely missed. But in my defense, I don't think it was possible to predict what exactly we just witnessed, because this story took such a massive turn and swung into a direction so far from what any of us thought that I am now looking sideways at the trailer we got for 3.5, because half of this stuff didn't happen. But before we look into that, we gotta understand what exactly just went down so that we are all on the same page. And though a lot of my predictions were completely incorrect, a lot of my theories still ring true. So without further ado, this is the Flame Chase of Deliverance Explained. Okay. So the way we're going to do this is the same as the last time. Instead of retelling the story how it is told, I'm going to be putting things in chronological order in order to make everything as understandable as possible. That said, let's get into this. Because in truth, this story begins with Hysilens losing her entire race to the Black Tide after being promised a feast by her mother Phagusa, the Ocean Titan. And being entirely sold on this false promise, Hysilens fought through the pain and loss of her homeland being destroyed and was forced to relocate on land, where she roamed without a purpose or reason to live. Much like how Castorus left Idonia to see the world before returning to her old life. But where Hysilens' story differs from Castorus is when she meets a woman with undoubtable delusions of grandeur, who is willing to give her all that she desires in return for her loyalty. And this woman was none other than the future Imperator Cerydra, who inspired hope in this lost soul and shined a light into the darkness of her life, giving her a place to belong and a dream to fight for. And just like that, Cerydra's road of conquest was underway. And with that prologue out of the way, this is where our story truly begins. Because from our perspective, we are back where we left off in the last update with Cyrene and ID Zalesii, where we are preparing for the experience that we could never imagine that we would be embarking on. And before we set off, we activate our chronocognitive anchor to consult with our genius friends, to which they proceed to tell us about the grave danger we find ourselves in, reinforcing that Iron Tomb will be a universal threat that is currently at 99% evolution, and that the power of law is the ultimate protocol that controls all manner of law in Amphorius that Lygus does not have direct access to. And they also tell us that Lygus is indeed locking in, as I predicted, and has already started to change things in this world. And for good reason. His beloved Black Tide virus is currently being held back by Khaslana. For the most part, it still got to Phagusa. But we also learn that Dan Heng is safe, but we aren't exactly sure where he is, but they're not really concerned about it, they're mainly concerned for us. And before we can get any more info from our favorite geniuses, Lygus cuts the feed. So we begin our perilous journey with Cyrene. And this is where the downward spiral into chaos begins. Because right after we set sail for Akima, Lygus pulls us into his pocket dimension in reality, where he observes the events of Amphorius, called the Exomyth. And it is here that we are shown the true forms of all of our beloved Chrysos Heirs, them being nothing but strings of code playing on a screen. And the reason why Lygus shows us these things is because he wants to give us an ultimatum before we start a war with him. Either we leave Amphorius and let Iron Tomb complete its evolution and destroy Noose, or we fight and die. But in Lygus fashion, he does throw something in there to sweeten the deal, because he claims to know the secrets of the Stellarons and offers to help us control it. But of course we turn him down because we aren't evil, and Lygus pretty much declares war on us and sends us back, where we are woken up by Cyrene at the Temple of the Three Fates in what I believe is Yanisopolis, which is convenient because our two co-stars are also here along with little Trevi. And the reason why they are all here is to get rid of some troublemaking Council of Elders. Now, remember when I said that Cerydra purged the Council of Elders in the first Flame Chase journey? Well, in her first act on screen, she confirms this, as she quite literally incinerates this man right in front of us. Because not everyone wants to follow the Chrysos Heirs who felled Talantin, especially the followers of Talantin. But Cerydra doesn't play these games. You fall in line or you die. Simple as that. Then she has Hysilens kill Elder Kindness, giving her a death fitting for the insignificant little spiteful ant that she is. But as simple as her obey or die system is, Cerydra is much more of a complicated character, because immediately after this, she refers to us as the Deliverer, flexing her knowledge of our cycle's events, even though she should be entirely ignorant of them. Even showing knowledge in details like the 27th kindness causing us problems. So this kindness's death was her gift to us. A gift much appreciated. Aglaya sends her regards. And it is here that we get to understand a key difference this cycle has with the previous one. Because remember when I said that Orynyx called Kephaly's flame chase prophecy false in the Eternal Recurrence? Well, in this cycle, Orynyx is actually trusted over Kephaly, and the Treebees are spreading their prophecy instead of Kephaly's. And it is through Orynyx being the best Titan that everyone knows us and phase 1 of our plan is complete. We have made contact. But unfortunately, we aren't the only ones who have made contact, because Lygus is also speaking with Cerydra, attempting to gaslight her into accepting his terms with flattery and promises of universal conquest, something we the audience know is completely false. Meanwhile, we get to meet our friends for the very first time in the cycle, and we get to see how endearingly sassy Aglaya's personality is, before becoming a demigod and having to deal with, well, everything. We also learn, once again, that she can in fact see with her eyes, and she doesn't have her golden threads here because she isn't a demigod yet. But I'll stop being petty. Later on, we are invited to a political meeting, but nothing crazy happens. It's just Cerydra laying down the law as usual, and afterwards we speak with her privately, where we have to choose our words very carefully and letting her know that we require the power of law, but we aren't exactly trying to take it from her either. But luckily she appreciates our honesty and tells us that Fagusa is stopping the spirit water from flowing into the vortex of Genesis, so no one is a demigod yet. And by slaying Fagusa, we, or rather she, can claim the power of law. So we are on the same side, but we aren't exactly sure to what extent. And with that, we part ways, because she says that we smell. So after walking in on Hysilens having her little fishy time, we are finally left to our own devices, so we get to contact Herta to notify her of the situation, only for her to just guess everything that just happened. Including calling Cerydra something that I will never not see her as. Little Empress with a candle stuck on her head made me laugh so much harder than it should have. Honestly, how do you hate this character? How do you hate Herta? Every time she is on screen, something interesting is being said or she's doing something cool. Every time. But either way, you guys know that Herta Glaze is par for the course. That all aside, she also explains how Lygus's firewall works, which is something I'll have to do some more research on later because another genius was brought up and this is a solitary wave situation again. But what is important here is the fact that we get confirmation that Lygus is a Genius Society member, so his claim of basking in the gaze of the erudition was not a lie. And it was right here where Herta destroyed my theory of Lygus being Rupert by calling my pride and joy theory boring. The numbers say otherwise, Herta. But man, being roasted by your favorite character hurts. It's like they put this in the story just for me. But my shattered ego aside, we continue with our appearance at the banquet before the conquest of Fagusa by being forced to give up our belongings before entering the party, including our chronocognitive anchor, and this comes into play later. Because after realizing that Cerydra hasn't shown up to her own party yet, Hysilens has us drink honeydew to undo the trance that she has put everyone in to mask the presence of Cerydra and Lygus. So after spying on them, Cerydra catches us and makes a scene. And after this show of dramatics, it is revealed that our plan to gain the trust of the Imperator was a soaring success. And she, along with everyone else, turned on Lygus, and it is revealed that Cerydra used the chronocognitive anchor that was confiscated from us to contact Herta and Screwlum. And just like that, Lygus is backed into a corner. But there is a saying about situations like this: a cornered animal is the most dangerous. And this rings true, because Lygus proceeds to crash out and send us to the exomyth, where time is dilated, meaning that years in Emphorius pass as minutes in the exomyth. So by the time we figure out how to escape, 1,000 years have already passed for our poor Chrysos Heirs. So in keeping this story in chronological order, this is where I'll shift to what happens after we got sent away. Because in truth, Cerydra had her own motives this entire time, especially for the power of law. But in order to pass the trial of law, she learned that she was going to have to lead 500 Chrysos Heirs to their deaths. And this was that massive loss that she took at the end of the first Flame Chase journey that we read about. Different cycle, same outcome. But they did end up killing Fagusa, and the water flowed once again into the vortex of Genesis. And it is here that her grand scheme was revealed. Because to her dismay, the power of law was not what she thought it was, and for every law change, she had to sacrifice a life. So she chose to give her own life in exchange for one rule change. And we don't know what that rule even is. Hopefully we'll know later, because as of right now, she just absolutely died for nothing. But after the fall of Cerydra, everything kinda just fell into chaos, because Lygus began leading armies into Akima, laying siege to the Chrysos Heirs time and time again, unable to kill them himself due to the ultimate protocol, but still finding ways to do it. Well, remember when I said that Khaslana wasn't able to hold back the entirety of the Black Tide? Well, some of it got out, and Fagusa, along with her kin, fell with it, with Hysilens being the only survivor, as I stated earlier. So Lygus found a way to use the Black Tide still, until the efforts of the last surviving Chrysos Heirs gave all of their lives to put on a final gambit to trap him in the vortex of Genesis. And they succeeded, leaving Hysilens to use her songs to trap Lygus and for Cyrene to hide herself in a corner of time to wait for our return, while sending the core flame of world bearing into the future that Evernight somehow got a hold of and then gave it to us. And this is where we rejoin the story. Making our way to the vortex, Lygus yapping our ears off the entire time. This guy refuses to shut up. We face off with the administrator himself, who finally reveals his true identity as Zandar One Kuwabara, the creator of Noose that went missing after finding the imaginary tree. Now, I'll have to make a whole video going into why Zandar hates his own creation, so we're gonna move on. Psych, never mind, we're talking about this now. Now, take this as part 1 of what we know about Zandar, because we still need an entire video to go over everything, but the reason why he wants to take down Noose is kinda crazy, because even though he is the one who created Noose, he regrets it with every ounce of his soul and sees it as his duty to right his wrong. The wrong being that Noose provides the answers people are looking for academically. So there is no real reason to pursue knowledge, especially if Noose just knows everything. Put simply, Zandar is a boomer who hates AI for being too good at its job. Because Zandar created Noose to solve universal mysteries, but now hates Noose for doing it so well that no one else really needs to do it. Which is false, because Noose takes information from the Genius Society members. That's the whole reason why Noose has Genius Society members and keeps tabs on their emanators. But that's besides the point. So I need you guys to understand the layered irony here. Because Zandar created Noose, Noose gazed at geniuses, which made Rupert a threat. Then Rupert created the Scepters, the first of which being part of Noose, that is now turned out to be Iron Tomb. Then Rupert dies to Polka twice, and Noose rejected Iron Tomb, so Nanook showed up. Now Zandar is manipulating Iron Tomb, who was ascended to Lord Ravager status by Nanook, into taking down Noose. But Zandar is getting stopped by other geniuses that Noose favors. So not only is Zandar trying to use part of Noose to kill Noose, but is also foiled by Noose's followers, proving his idea that Noose ruins everything false, because the fact that New Age geniuses are currently being gazed at proves this, proving his idea that Noose ruins everything academically false. Herta is a living example of Zandar being wrong. Humans are going to pursue knowledge whether Noose exists or not. Zandar thinks that just because Noose exists, people are just gonna stop pursuing knowledge for some reason. Like, no, for people who really want to pursue knowledge, Noose is simply a tool for them to reach greater heights. It is a symbiotic relationship. Noose needs humanity, and humanity now needs Noose. And for some reason, Zandar is so blinded by the jealousy of his own creation that he can't even be proud of his own success. This is like narcissism Ouroboros. He is so self-absorbed that he envies his own achievement. That said, there is still more, but that's a quick rundown on Zandar. And this is where we go back to the story, because Zandar gets his butt kicked and then proceeds to cheat. But then Cyrene cheats and tags in with her memories to allow us to reset time. And this song and dance replays over and over and over again, and though the Trailblazer doesn't really know why, this was the plan all along. Because as Zandar is projecting himself into Amphorius, he has to calculate everything for himself in Amphorius and outside of Amphorius. Also, again, time dilation, so he is forced to think at 2 different speeds at once. Then throw in the fact that everything is repeating and he is also fighting, so we basically are giving him an eternal recurrence all to himself. Or as I like to call it, an eternally repeating aneurysm. That gets progressively worse the longer he stays in it. Meaning that his mind will break before ours will. And realizing this disadvantage, he leaves Amphorius to return fully to the Exomyth. Once again cornered by Herta, Screwlum, Cyrene, and Evernight. And also leaving us to complete Era Nova and reset the world yet again. Meaning that this was not the last cycle, we're going around one more time. And this is where we meet the interlude. Don't get me wrong, there are still a lot of important details to address that I will be covering in the coming videos. But now that we are all on the same page, now we can finally get to a theory of mine that has been standing strong all this time. You know the drill, it's been a while, but it is once again time for the in-game paths theory to make a return. My personal theory that states that each and every character has 2 paths, a lore path and an in-game one, with the lore path being the faction affiliation of the character and the in-game one reflecting a major aspect of their life. This theory has been a thing for nearly a year now, and to be honest, Hoyo is making it more and more obvious with each and every new character. Because other than the fact that Hysilens literally has the word nihility floating over her face at some point, her entire life is draped in this path. She lost her home, she lost everything she loved, along with having to kill her own guiding light. And the whole time, she was never able to escape this feeling of emptiness, because Hysilens' connection to the nihility is shown through her never having her own identity. She never lived for herself. She lived for Fagusa, then she lived for Cerydra, then she lived for us for 1,000 years, and though her resolve is strong, she views herself as always lost. Just a fish who doesn't even feel comfort from the ocean anymore. So much so that even when Cerydra gave her a page from the As I Have Written book to see the Shenjo's oceans, she still wasn't satisfied because she herself has no clue what she even wants, or even if her wants, or even if she matters at all. And that is simply the most nihility thing ever. And Cerydra? Well, other than her having a section cut out for her where she was literally relating to Sunday, the Harmony Pathstrider of all people, her entire theme is getting people to march by her drum and play by her rules. Not to mention that the Order was a path that revolved around righteousness and justice, so though she is much more suited for the path of the Order is now the Harmony. It is actually just that simple. And I could not be happier that if I got one theory standing in the end, I know that the in-game paths theory will never fail me. Along with the rewriting the new story for Amphorius theory. That is also a very old one that finally happened. And now we gotta run it back one last time. Because this is the Flame Chase of Deliverance Explained. This story was all over the place and it is still fresh off the grill, and even I need some time to process what I just experienced. But we still have one more thing to address, and that is the fact that we finally did it. 50,000 subscribers has been achieved, and now I can finally reveal to you all the surprise that I have been waiting to launch. Some of you guessed what it was from day one, but when I say that this gift will make us a true community, I wasn't joking. Because in the description is an invite link to a brand new Discord server where we can theorize and speculate to our heart's content. And I am currently waiting for you there. Think of it as, instead of merely saying thank you for making this channel the special place that it is, I want to give you all a special place as well. 50,000 is no small feat, and even though I am a nose to the grindstone type of guy, I really believe that this is a milestone that deserves to be celebrated. And just like Amphorius, our story is far from over, and we still have so much left to talk about. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.